Mike, it is good to see you. How are you doing?
I'm doing really well. Other Mike.
Here you go. It is. This
How
makes
are
it
you?
really easy. I won't forget the name of the
Yeah.
person on the other end. Right?
Yeah. Yeah. It might get confused. I mean, thankfully our voices are, different enough. They're going to know that it's one of the mics talking
This
into the mic of all things. Gosh, coexistence.
Mike,
Dad jokes.
Mike, and Mike. There you go. A Mike, and a Mike walk into a bar.
If we started our own show, it would be like Mike and Mike on the mic.
There you go. See,
That would be our thing.
and there was a time and place where we used to have Mike and Mike doing the sports talk stuff, and then the guy who I
Yep.
originally started the business with was Mike Connor. I say was Mike Connor. He's still Mike Connor. He's still around, and
Right.
we were Mike and Mike on this thing. So now we are with another Mike. So if you've made it this far, Mike and Mike are going to talk about marketing ops. What better thing to talk about than marketing ops? Mike, what's marketing ops?
What is marketing ops? Oh gosh, the way we describe that to folks that ask the question in our families, because we get this question a lot, right? As family members, we the short version is, oh, it's IT for marketing, and people go, oh, okay, like that works. But then they're like, oh, so like you set up people's computers, and we're like, no, not kind of IT. It turns into a lot of things. Marketing ops is a practice area stems predominantly from the B2B side of things. So you'll find people who work in business to business sort of organizations, most often in software as a service. They will hold a title of marketing operations something, manager, director, etc. And their job is to effectively translate the language of the business, the unique sort of motion that you believe will make you successful in entering a market and selling your products or services, that unique lens that your business has, and translate it to the art of the possible when it comes to modern marketing technology. And that's a really fancy way to say they do really cool stuff with marketing tools and enable you to leverage the greatest capabilities the marketing technology has to offer.
What's a mistake that people make when thinking about just the word operations?
That's a question. I would say the mistake is that it becomes seen as something that's too tactical and not strategic.
Mm.
And I think the backbone of every strategy has a like solid operational understanding, because strategy sort of comes from understanding the art of the possible. In order to get to executing on a strategy, you have to really understand, what are my capabilities, what are my limitations, and yeah, I think that that's sort of a misconstrued concept about operations broadly, right? Is that it often feels like, oh, I have to hit send on an email, or, I have to set up the system to move the data from A to Z or whatever. It's like, it feels back office focused and not necessarily front office, moving the needle, generating revenue. And I think that is a terrible, terrible way to think about operations. Like it actually, like I said, it's the backbone of strategic success.
It's a powerful way to look at operations. I mean, ultimately, like if you're gonna operate well, either as a business or as a person, ideally you've got some strategy, some way that you kind of organize work, and then you've got some tactics, the work that happens, and then some way to reflect on whether or not the work is working or you're doing the work. So either one of those things. And it's not super sexy, but it actually helps get business done.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Uh, it can feel like operations, whether it's marketing ops, rev ops, whatever, insert operations, biz ops function, they can feel like speed bumps, roadblocks, walls, even where they're saying no to you about things. And a lot of that is just like slowing down to speed up, right? And ensuring that we don't have to redo this thing every single time in a net new way. You look at, like, just to create a rudimentary example, right? If I was looking at the success of something like a McDonald's, we're all pretty familiar with that food chain now. There, or even In-N-Out, frankly. I think In-N-Out might be the better example here. In-N-Out is a success story of operations, like through and through. Someone looked at how to optimize a floor plan for producing high quality fast food and moving people through that system in a way that was like totally new, right? And they sat there and they were like, okay, this is how operationally we have to structure this room in order to service our customers in a real effective and efficient way. And that became a unique operational unlock and a strategy where they said, we're not going to try to bump into each other constantly as we go to grab the ketchup or put the bun on or whatever, right? We're going to make this possible and deliver our product. I mean, it's like the assembly lines. It's back when cars were getting built, right? Like, that's operations, and it's an unlock revenue.
Yeah, it's pretty cool when you see it work really, really well. Like when you see an operation work really, really well and a team interacting with each other, it looks like it's orchestrated. Like there's some organization to it. And at the same time, if you see a team not operating within some of that construct, you see a lot of chaos. Is that fair?
Yeah. Lots of chaos. Left hand doesn't know what the right's doing. All the little like ways to try to describe that, right? If you're hiring a team and you're trying to grow fast, I would hate for you to not have an onboarding process that teaches people what your business is all about and how you do business and who to interact with on the team and all of those things. You start to implement operational rigor to like go faster, right? If I had to, even if you had a lapse in a hiring, phase, right? Like let's say you bring on 20 new people and then for whatever reason you don't hire another 6 to 9 months, heck, another year. I would hate for you to have to like go figure out how to do that again, right? Hopefully you documented your process along the way, maybe learned some new things and updated it, and you go into your next hiring sprint, you've got a system to follow and you don't want to like slow people down, right? So yeah, it feels like chaos if there isn't something there.
Okay. So if you're
and the martech side of that is terrible. Like, sorry.
What do you mean
like,
terrible?
Like when people buy products, tools, whatever, or they're just doing marketing in general, I think the most natural sort of chaos moment that comes up is is this working is the question, right? Like from an analytics point of view, someone, usually the CEO or CMO, goes, hey, didn't we just spend like a bunch of money on this? Like, did that work? Like, well, define your definition of did it work, first of all. Second, I don't know, but we go figure out how to back my way into that answer now, right? And so it can feel really chaotic if you don't have like an agreed upon way to measure success.
Right. Especially when there's so many different
ways. Yeah, maybe I'm jumping the gun.
Well, especially when there's so many different ways to get access to data, where ultimately with that data, you can use it to, you can cherry pick the information to demonstrate the results that you're looking for or create your own specific narrative, especially if you don't have some kind of predetermined or agreed upon data points or criteria or metrics that you actually care about inside the business.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that's exactly right. I think when what feels like momentum will be stifled by lack of like definition very quickly, right? Like you can get away with growth in an organization for quite a while, especially if you've got something that's got great traction, right? But the second the S hits the fans, right, and something goes wrong, the market shifts or whatever it might be that slows you down, and you start trying to figure out, okay, well, how do I optimize where we've already had success? If you didn't have some of the definitions and alignment of how you defined success, um, you're it'll feel like starting over all over again. I think we've seen that in more often than not in the B2B like tech space, over the last whatever 20 years. But people obviously have shifted their attention to like measured sustainable growth. It's not necessarily growth at all costs anymore. I think in general, leadership has changed their tone, how they want to process effective go-to-market strategy. And they're okay with slowing down to speed up, but we're not fully seeing that yet. And I think part of that is leadership needs to be aware of the art of the possible, which is a tough thing to educate people on. Right.
Yeah. So if you made it this far and you're like, wow, Mike and Mike are talking about something that's near and dear to my heart and has been kind of stuck in my head for a while, but I didn't know exactly how to articulate it. Just wait. So are there other people who think about ops and marketing ops in this way?
Yeah. I'd say there's folks that are holding roles, usually in the like go-to-market side. They're going to come up with, I don't know, director of demand generation. There's life cycle marketers out there that you see that title show up a lot on the C side. Just sort of like campaign managers in general, like people who are coming up with these, how do I reach people, get their attention, even on the sales side, right? When you're trying to figure out how I engage with my buyer audience at the right time in the right place and all that stuff. There's a lot of folks that desire more information to enable them to like go deliver on their job, right? Whether that's sales or marketing. They don't all hold a marketing operations title. You might hold a rev ops title today or something like that, a sales ops title, or like I mentioned, demand gen or what have you. And you will be best suited when holding those roles to go team up with someone that holds a marketing ops title and say, teach me, or say, here are all my problems, right? Like, let me just like share a day in the life of my role as an insert role here, right? Like demand gen marketer or feel and confidence. If someone has a marketing operations background, they're going to be there to say, I could probably figure out how to enable you and make you go faster and give you it.
Yeah, it's amazing what happens when you start asking questions. And I missed on my question. What I was doing is I was trying to tee Mike up to talk about the community that he has of people who talk about this stuff as a group where they invest in self and they develop. But I failed with my question. So tell me a little bit about the community that you've built over the years of people who are coming together and congregating with this vision of, hey, there's a way that we can build systems that have feedback loops that help pull data together and help get us moving forward faster relative to achieving objectives. So like, tell me a little bit about the community that you've built.
Yeah, totally. Marketingups.com is the home domain for a community known as the MoPros, which stands for Market Operations Professionals. We have right around 6,500 people hanging out in a Slack channel today. We have about, at the time of this recording, right around 15,000 or so sort of overall like subscribers broadly to our news, our emails, our events, these kinds of things. And what we are is a community of practice. So Where that's different for all of you watching or listening is more often than not, you'll find yourself in communities that, they might be a niche interest, right? Like a baking club or a readers club or a wine club or what have you. And you have a shared interest, right? Marketingops.com is that shared interest. We really enjoy B2B, martech, go-to-market ops, and enabling teams to really streamline go-to-market efficiencies, unlike a customer community, right? Like a HubSpot has its own community, or a Marketo, or any of the other software companies, right? And what's great about that is you get to, like I like to say, sort of go from a team of one or a team of few to a team of like many, many hundreds, thousands, right? Oh, like you join, become a member, you jump in on Slack or just a community forum in general, you instantly have a place to dramatically shorten your learning curve on certain things that you're looking to accomplish, whether that's lead enrichment capabilities, lead scoring, how to implement HubSpot or Marketo or Eloqua or Pardot or whatever. You can ask those questions and really skip a lot of the like Googling, trying to figure it kind of stuff, or at least get a leg up on heading down a particular direction. So yeah, that's kind of us. We've been around since 2017. I started it as a team of one, and none of what you see today was ever planned. It was all brought together because members of the community kept asking us for more things, or kept asking me for more things, I guess. And eventually we've kind of developed all these different programs, the membership, the events, all of it, because that's what it's for.
It's cool to hear how community driven or community led you are in that development and that iteration. What's a mistake that people make when they join a community? What's something that they typically do wrong in that first, let's say, 30 to even 90 days of joining a community?
Yeah, so it's sounds like a cop-out answer, but it is the thing that is most consistently true. It's just like not getting involved, like being, you don't have to jump in and make yourself known and shout out, you've got problems or whatever. If you're a little bit more of, I guess like introvert, I would say, right? I fall in that category. Like I've been taught to try to get more comfortable with like this, like doing podcasts and speaking and all that stuff. But I very much prefer to just sort of be the person who's plugging away, like not having to be out there and loud. And if that's you like to sit, like that's fine. But the mistake that most people make is not offering up a little bit of advice themselves if they see a question that they have experience with. Your unique experience is very valuable to other people. Someone else is going through something similar to you, and they could learn from you. Just full stop. And if you want to go the other direction and start asking for help, you will more quickly get exactly what you put in back out of the community. So it is absolutely a give what you get what you give, kind of situation. Yeah, I'd say that's the number one mistake that people make is they get in and just expect, answers to fall in their lap. Oh, you have a pain point, ask about it. We're here for you. That's what the community's for.
And you'll find, at least what I find in the communities that I'm a part of, the people who are a part of the community truly want to help. They want to serve. They want to share perspective, hear about some of the challenges that are happening out there. I learn a lot from the number of questions that I see in different community groups that I'm a part of, where I start to realize, ooh, people are still struggling with this thing. And watching the answers to some of those questions, I learn a lot around different ways to go about solving. And this is one of the benefits of community is we are better together. We learn through the process of both asking questions, sharing with others on how we've overcome some things, and then hearing feedback from others around how they've overcome those things. So if you join a
Yeah.
community, get out there and at least ask questions. At a minimum, listen to some of the answers, ask questions, engage, and participate.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. It's funny. When I was getting started in my career, none of this stuff existed. And it's funny as every time I like go to talk about this aspect of my journey, I kind of envision that, like, our grandparents that used to say, I used to walk uphill both ways, like in the snow to school or whatever. And I sound a little crotchety. Really none of this stuff existed before. We were all figuring it out for ourselves. The promise of marketing automation and technology when it came out was like, it almost felt like magic, right? You would just turn it on and business would grow. And like, that's a lot of what we were being pitched. And the reality was that, like, those of us that really ended up falling into marketing operations as a category, that's the most consistent story that you hear, is that people are like, oh yeah, my story is I was tasked with, quote unquote, figure out how to send a newsletter.
Okay.
A job, right? And I rapidly digressed into operations as a core fundamental piece of, well, if you want to send a newsletter, you got to have a database. And if you want to have a database, you got to figure out what you want to capture. And if you just spiraled, right? And in order to get there, to sort of hark back to what you're talking about, like, the community is there to support you and like they're helpful. I found that I should have known that all along, right? Like when I started this thing in 2017 and we sort of organically kept growing and people started to jump in, help out with each other, like, duh. Like, it's in our nature as a marketing operations professional, as I sort of mentioned a moment ago too, if someone came to me with their challenges, right, that like explain to me a day in the life, I'm almost going to listen to that. Even if they weren't even telling me that they were a problem, I would listen to it through the ear of if I could help them.
Right.
And that's what we have, is like thousands of people that sit there and they listen. They go, I wonder if I could help them. And I think that's what's about our particular community. Not all communities are that way, but our particular vocational practice area is a group full of very, very helpful individuals. So take advantage of it.
Well, and once you go out there and you start investing in self and you participate in these things, you realize how much more you can both share and learn. So where does that investment of self come into play with all of this?
Well, there's a couple of things you can. We've instrumented a membership model for marketingops.com. And you can join in at about $350 for the year, at least at the time of this recording. Foresee us changing that anytime soon. So hopefully that'll be the truth for a while. And in doing that, you'll unlock access to not just the community itself on Slack, but a plethora of other opportunities, inclusive of your ability to sort of like consume we have a conference we host each year. You can consume that from a virtual perspective at no additional cost. And then you'll start to find channels to dive into. And I mean that in sort of like both the literal channels in the community that are specific to things like HubSpot or your current role. Like if you're a senior manager or director, there's going to be specific groups for you. If you're a consultant, we have a private group for you where you can talk to other consultants there's a lot that happens in that world, right? And then you can also get involved, not just in those channels, the tech specific channel, HubSpot, Marketo, Pardot. You can also get involved in programs like our workshop series, and you can host a 40-minute session where you can teach people other things that you've learned, shortcut them. If you hear me say to you now, I wish I knew this when, whatever starts coming to mind is probably the thing that you should start telling people about, right? Because there's going to be a point sometime in your career where you go, man, I really wish I knew that. Whatever, 5 years ago, last month, right? And so, yeah, I think you can invest in your career, invest into the community, and it'll invest back into you, because you'll start tapping into like specific groups and unlocking. I'd say more than just knowledge, it's your network, right? And I don't know, for those of you that are probably 3 to 5 years into your role or more, by now you probably surmise that your network is your net worth, basically. And you can find a lot of opportunity to grow professionally, find new lines of business, literal job opportunities. It all comes from the network that you build. And this is sort of a nice hack to find people that are friends that can, set you on your way.
Well, and like anything else, I mean, what's the old, I think it's a Chinese proverb about the best time to plant a tree would have been 20 years ago. Second best time is to do it now. Like there's
Yeah.
there's a book out there on networking that I read early on in my career. It was, I think the title was Build Your Well Before You Need to Drink. And that's one of the other things that really happens as you kind of or become known as someone who serves inside the network, and be known of someone who can help others find those who can serve them. And so you act in service of others inside this community, inside a network. And that is an investment, both of time and in many cases, money and resources. There's energy, there's money, there's time, all resources that we end up investing in. And as you go deeper into the different communities that are out there, you'll find that there are different layers of different levels that you can kind of level up into from an investment perspective, which starts to feel a bit like this kind of multi-level marketing kind of thing, but that's not what it is. It's you can choose your own adventure and how you want to proceed within the community. One of the things that's been super helpful for me from a networking perspective is participating in events and being around a group of people who have a similar interest in a public environment where not only do I see them in sessions where either I'm speaking or others are speaking, but also start to see them in the margins, like in the hallways. And it's amazing the conversations that can happen inside that environment. Each of those require different levels of investment, again, from a time and a money and resource perspective. And if you're looking to grow, invest, and that will create space for growth.
Totally. And I think what's been fun to us as we've endeavored to host, we call Mopsapalooza, where Mike, I know we're going to have you speaking and teaching a workshop. I'm really excited about that piece. But what's been interesting and unique about this journey is, I mentioned sort of at the top of this, that we're a community-led organization. So Mopsapalooza was born out of the members asking for a place to share their knowledge. And what we've done is we've leaned all the way into that. And we said, let's can't even just as a sponsor a speaking slot. You have to earn it. And in order to earn it, our ticket holders will be rating and reviewing all the speaker submissions that come in. And if it's ranked highly enough, then there's a chance you'll end up on a stage. But it ends up becoming a community-led, practitioner-led conference where no one is really standing there trying to sell you something. And that is the thing that is different about when you head over to like an inbound Adobe Summit. I don't know, Dreamers, right? These big B2B conferences that we've all seen on martech. Their job is to sell software. Like, that's why those companies exist. And that's fine. Like, nobody can fault them for that. it is also very exciting to see the capabilities and some of the new fun stuff that they're coming out with. But understanding how it's being used, not just what it's offering, is sort of the core difference between a Mopsapalooza practitioner-led environment versus a like software-led conference, right? They're going to show you a lot of what they have, not necessarily how to use it. And I think that when you talk about sort of this idea of investing, right? Our community is investing in our conference. Every speaker pays for a ticket to come. They're not just up there because, we picked them and they got a free ticket and all this other stuff. No, they're also investing to make this thing happen, right? And they're giving their time, their dollars, and their knowledge to all of our community members to help elevate each other in the space that, like, again, we were mostly fumbling and stumbling our way through. And I think that pays credence to this idea: when you invest in the community, you can have a success, like at least a successful outcome, or achieve new levels of success, because you're connecting with people on a totally new level, right? Like when people come to Mopsapalooza, or conferences like it, because I know there's others, right? They've come to me many, many times and they've said, this felt like therapy, right? Like I didn't have to explain what I do for a living to anybody. I just instantly knew that we knew what each other does. And the outcome of that is that you get very nerdy very fast, and your brain gets a little mushy because you didn't have deep conversations for like 2 days. But it's like the most exciting, rewarding thing that you could possibly feel on, when you go to a conference. So I hope I'm not trying to pitch everybody to go to this thing. It's just, it is different, right? Like whether our tribe is your tribe and you want to come hang out at marketinghouse.com and Mopsapalooza, that's great. If not, like find that somewhere. Right?
And I
That's
think
my message.
Well, and that's one of the beauties of how social media has evolved. And it's hard to shift through the signal, see the signal through the noise, because there's a lot of noise out there, and the noise is just going to continue to kind of build upon each other. And there are overnight experts that are made every day as a result of being able to find the perfect prompt that they throw into whatever LLM that they're using at any point in time. And that's where we've got to be careful about this whole like buyer beware in that environment. You test and iterate, and you'll start to feel what makes sense from that tribe perspective. And you could be in sales ops, or you could be in DevSecOps and want to get a new perspective from a marketing ops standpoint and start to hear how other humans work through different problems and different challenges and different things, and start to apply them in the context that you're more familiar with, which is where real innovation comes from. And I think sometimes we get so caught up and locked in on the idea of the only people who can innovate in a certain area are the ones who are actually operating in that area. But the reality is the people who are in that area, operating in that area, are innovating based on how everybody else in that area is operating, not necessarily how taking something from someplace else and applying it in that context. And that's one of the reasons why I like to participate in events that are not specifically related to the areas that I've historically focused on. As an example, like I've got a pretty strong background in learning and development and enablement technology and some of those things. And I learn more sitting in a group of people who are focused on manufacturing, and what I find out is the humans in that room are all talking about human things that all of us other humans still have going on. And they just may have found a different way to approach it. Like my favorite story around that is one that it was a guy from Xerox who had shared this. I think it was Xerox, but it was tied to the America's Cup, which is a boat race. And one of the, you used to crank sales up with a hand crank. Somebody joined, I think, the Oracle team who had a background in cycling. And the way the story goes is they said, how come we're not using our legs? And you think about power to weight ratio in the leg versus the hand. All obvious, but that thinking doesn't come from the people who are constantly using their hand to crank. They're trying to think of new ways to make their hands work faster rather than completely change the game. And this is what that long story is there to kind of say, hey, sometimes that testing in your tribe and kind of figuring out new things can actually it can be a catalyst to innovation that you didn't even think was possible.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. It's I completely agree. I have sat in a room myself with it was a community of financial professionals. It's a CFO Alliance was the breakfast that I was at. I was a fly on the walls. And I will tell you, like, I was absorbing bits of the conversation and the challenges and the business thinking that they were all applying to hear things and learn things in a completely new manner. I didn't necessarily come in to offer anything. I was just purely trying to learn and absorb and understand what their world was about. And it definitely opened my eyes to how important, that particular sector, and by understanding more about the finance side, I acted not just like my own organization, of course, thinking more financially, like ops sort of driven, but I also started to go, gosh, we all should be really aware of, right? Like that piece. And what was fascinating was the words that they were using in the room were identical to the types of words and terms and language that we use in marketing ops. Right? They were faced with the same challenges, just totally different, stacks of technology or whatever, but ultimately a fairly common set of shared problems and language. And goodness, if we just all sat in the room together and started talking about this stuff, we could probably help each other out, right? Because like, sort of bringing it back to business, go to market and tech in general. If your finance team, FP&A, whatever, is trying to figure out, are we successful? It'd be great if you on the marketing ops side or demand or sales side, if you understood how they measured success. Because then like maybe you could do something along the way to help give them the information they need to then report back to you on, you did a good job, right? And if you have no idea how they're growing revenue or recognizing revenue for that matter, like you're off on the wrong foot. So I think it's important. You need to like sit in the room and understand and share that conversation and just absorb. And I don't know. Yeah, I think go insert yourself in places to find opportunities to learn. It's a good move.
Well, you said, I don't know, but I think you do know. Like, I think that you do. Actually, I know you do. I know you do based on the conversations that we've had. It's when you put yourself out there and you have conversations with people who deeply care about the specific work that they're doing, and you take time to get really interested in what do they care about? Why do they care about it? How are they working through it? And what are they actually struggling with? Tell me a little bit about what the day in the life type stuff is. You'd be amazed at what you start to see. And then you could start to think about it and operationally inside an organization. How does your cog fit into the other cog that ultimately drives this machine that's moving forward inside the organization? And it doesn't happen by guessing. And in a lot of cases, there are a lot of people that are out there that are guessing without actual perspective because they've not asked the question. They've not gone in and said, let me just see what you do or how you do it, or what do you even do with the data that we share? Like what happens?
Right.
So you see that monthly report that comes in that has a bunch of these numbers. Do you do anything with it? No.
Right.
Okay. Well, why not? Like what do you do? What would you like to see? Imagine if we asked more questions in that environment rather than feel like we've got to share our perspective. What more might?
Yeah, exactly. I think isn't there Didn't someone say first seek to understand before being understood or something? It's
Yeah, it's
something
a
along those
that's a Covey
lines.
thing. Yeah, right. Seek
Yeah,
first to
yeah,
understand, and then to be understood. Right. Yeah.
yeah. So I think um, if you haven't heard that, or for those of you watching or listening, like double click on it and then just follow suit. Just go seek to understand, and then you can provide value.
So what? Let's talk about Mopsapalooza and when it is and when it's coming up and kind of will who are some of the folks that'll be in the room? Like who are the type of people that are going to be in the room and why someone might be interested in investing time and energy and resource in an event like that?
Sure. Yeah. Mopsapalooza is in Anaheim, California, right behind Disneyland at California Adventure Park. We'll be hosting at the Westin in Anaheim, October 27th through the 29th. Should be a really good event. We'll expect right around 450 to 550 attendees would be my estimate. Folks in the room, they're going to predominantly come from B2B organizations, though I will see B2C folks there as well. We had plenty of them in the room last year. They will grace our stages and share tactical advice on everything from growing your career and figuring out how to manage up. We talk a lot about geek speak to C-suite, really translating some of that language to have your executive presence leveled up, but also the communication path, helping your executives understand the things that you are so passionate about. Then they'll also go deep on tactical things like the use of AI and specific capabilities on the modern tech stack. I'd say for the attendees in the room, they will come from marketing operations by title, but we see plenty of marketing ops, rev ops, go-to-market ops, demand gen marketers, and even field event marketer trying to understand how to create a better operational go-to-market alignment between business. And so honestly, if you're in a go-to-market function and you're trying to understand the capabilities of technology, I think the thing that is the through line is modern marketing doesn't happen without some level of technology along the way. And this is a group full of people that can show you the art of the possible, and you should be in that room. If you interface with any function of the go-to-market side of things, you could go deep very quickly and learn from some amazing people on attribution and lead routing and enrichment and AI and all of the above. But you'll also be there, Mike. We're going to host pre-con workshops on Monday before we kick off the full event, where we'll go deep for about 90 minutes in various kinds of sessions. But why don't you share what we're going to be talking about at Mopsapalooza? Because I don't know it as well as you do. I just know that you're teaching it.
Yeah.
And that'll be an example of one workshop at least.
It really builds on this whole, uh, leadership. Leaders build leaders. Leadership starts with self, and leadership is how we move forward. So, how do we take some of the skills that apply? A lot of the skills that Mike's been talking about so far are skills like design, skills like problem solving, skills like decision making, skills like communication, and skills like execution, and incorporate those into our both skill set and then tool set as individuals to perform well inside our organizations, which gets into that piece around that communication and how so quickly we can get into the details and want to use the nuanced language that we use around a specific topic that we're interested in, with the person on the other end who actually has the money to fund the ability to do something doesn't really know the jargon, doesn't really know the words, and ultimately they have a specific set of objectives that they want to accomplish. So how do we align with those? So we're going to talk about that kind of stuff and to put it into practice, like working sessions, building both skills and applying tools, specifically in the context of communication and problem solving. And those are two of the core topics that we'll get into. And then depending on how the flow of the workshop goes, we might be able to get into a couple of other ones, but those are the ones that I've seen some of our biggest mistakes made. is we communicate without context, and sometimes we get ourselves trapped into solving problems that aren't really worth solving.
Hmm. Yeah. I find myself doing that all the time in marketing ops. We like go deep on a rabbit hole and we're like, wait, I think I'm the only person that cares about this right now.
And it's really a couple of simple questions that we can ask that, and I think that's what grabbed your attention when we were talking about it. It was like, okay, this just makes sense. It's clear. There's
Yep.
provide some clarity in an area where there's a lot of fog and confusion. And most of the fog and confusion comes from sometimes people thinking, hey, we've got a communication problem here, when actually the real problem is we have a decision making problem. But we think it's a
Hmm.
communication problem and not a decision making problem. We start applying the wrong tool in the wrong context. So the thing that excites me is the focus on practical application, like doing the work, getting things done, and then having the right feedback loops in there to determine whether or not the work's working. And if it is working, do more of it. And if it's not working, let's figure out why and maybe eliminate some of it. So I'm really excited to be a part of it, and excited to engage with the community. I know we had a chance at another event. I'll mention it was B2B MX that we were both at earlier
Yep.
this year. And one of the things that I saw, and I forget who was leading the conversation, but she threw up one of a couple of different words that are near and dear to people in operations, the operations world. And when she threw the words up, and they weren't in that order, but the words were something like systems, data, technology, and process. And when you look at it on a piece of paper, you realize that it spells out PTSD. And you wonder why we have these challenges as operators inside businesses when we're focused on operational rigor and getting to next steps and helping improve efficiency and creating space for growth, why some people don't understand. And it's because we create this PTSD with all
Yeah.
focus on process, technology, systems, and data.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally. Yeah. I loved it when you called attention to that. I was like, oh my gosh, it is so true. And it was perpetuated by, like it just feels we were acquiring tools and spending money, and it all felt like it was supposed to be just automatic, right? Like marketing automation and all that stuff. And that wasn't the reality, right? Like we weren't evaluating the business's needs. We were seeing a fancy tool or product or whatever, and we weren't thinking about capabilities and evaluating first on, well, what are the capabilities that we need to solve for, and then do we already have something in our stack that can enable us to do that? And if not, then let's go the other, start looking at the market and the set of technologies and all that stuff. But in order to get there, I need to have the foundational sort of data principles and all that stuff. And like our whole perspective of the buying cycle, I think, is starting to shift. But in order to get there, you have to know how to ask the right questions. And that's why I was really excited about working with you on bringing this particular workshop into play. When I think about sort of the future of where we're going to go in marketing operations, we're seeing a lot in the landscape, and frankly, it's kind of noisy. Go-to-market engineering is all over the place today, and I take great issue with that term. I think it's confusing the market. But what I'd like to see from our community is really how, like, by learning how to ask the right questions, I can deliver the right value to my organization because I've created alignment and I understand what their capabilities and their desires are. So I can go build out a product made up of many tools. And what we're trying to do at marketingops.com is establish what I would refer to as the go-to-market product manager certification. Because really, at the end of the day, you're delivering a product made up of lots of different tools, and you need to develop a roadmap to enable the business to use a go-to-market product stack to effectively achieve their outcomes. And a workshop like yours helps us understand how to ask the right questions to define that path. And that's the thing that like, I was like, hey, this is spot on for slowing down to speed up. As we said at the top of this recording, right? Like, you have to figure this stuff out. Otherwise, you're going to end up being the taker that says, someone says to you, rather, figure out how to send a newsletter. And then that's all you do, right? And listen, I will be honest with you. There are many, many tens of thousands of you out there that do not need to go this far into this career. That's great. You love playing in your band. You love your kids. You love running a sports team on the side. You love doing all of these other things in your life where you don't need to go all the way up into this, like, I want to be a strategic leader at the C-suite, da, 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 da. It's not for everybody, right? But for those of us that do fall in love with this and they do want to try something more and they want to sort of earn a seat at the table, we're trying our best to work alongside you in the community to say, well, what does that look like? And how do we get there so that the C-suite can turn back and go, oh, I know who I need to turn to when I need more help on go-to-market and use of technology. But for everybody else who just loves being a HubSpot expert or a Marketo expert or a really efficient campaign operator that can measure everything and set up a good workflow and a project management system, that's perfect, because we all need that too. So like, we're trying to meet the market where everybody's at, but also finally create a path for our members of our community to say, here's what it means to be a certified professional, and here's why that's so important for an organization to have these individuals, hold certification today.
Yeah. And you brought up the GTM engineer thing, which I know has become a big thing, and it just
breezed over that.
It relates to all of this. So I will go ahead and I'll put together an engineering certification that gives you a kind of a paint by numbers way to go about putting things into a system, and then push a button and have everything come out of the system, and then not give you the tools to think critically and creatively to determine whether or not the outputs are right. And this is one of the dangers and challenges that exist out there when folks can put a label up there that says, I'm a GTM engineer now because I've been certified in it, but they've not either gone to market, nor have they ever engineered a solution, and don't know what it means to engineer a solution or reverse engineer something or take something apart to see how it actually works. Because the challenge that happens there, and not to poke fun at I'll poke fun a little bit at the group that came out with this, is coining this in his marketing. And they're doing a really good job marketing that phrase out there, because more and more people I know are hanging it up there as this shingle that they have. But they lack the context, the clarity of being able to ask the right questions at the right time when things aren't working, so that they can actually fix the thing. And this is where those practitioners really can thrive. It's, what are the tools and resources that I need? And Mike talked about it from a questions perspective. That's the problem solving framework that we'll go through in the workshop. What are the tools and resources that I need to ask questions and go through the process to get the answers, and not walk out with a view of, hey, I'm going to confirm all of my biases and move forward based on the narrative that I wanted it to be, instead of actually going through and saying, should we actually do this or not do this? And I think that's the challenge with a lot of the stuff that gets out there, is you get this certification that says, yep, you're certified in it. Well, you're certified in being able to implement the thing. You're not certified to design it. You're not certified to fix it. You're not certified to re-instrument it when it doesn't work well for your group. And then the trap that comes up then is the next CRO or CMO or C whatever O that comes in goes and implements the new solution, because the problem wasn't the market or the way that you're approaching it. It was that you just didn't find the right tool to insert into this challenge. And it's so much easier to replace tools than it is to replace people. And then sometimes it
Yeah.
becomes necessary to replace people because you're just not generating revenue. So anyway, you got me
Yeah.
fired up, Mike.
Yeah.
Thanks.
And I look, the way, yeah, I echo a lot of what you were just saying. I recently posted about this. I'm a fan of pushing the industry in this direction. I am a supporter of this idea of go-to-market engineering in the sense that is it is adding, I think, while it is noisy to a degree, it is adding a new lens of a conversation, and it's creating conversation and an opportunity for us all to have this conversation that you're mentioning. And the way that I sort of wrote about this was like, look, I fundamentally agree that there are these unique things you can do in this go-to-market engineering, seeking alpha stuff that's happening from like Clay, who's sort of like pushing most of this out into the market. It's great. It's introducing new opportunities. But to your point, what I ended up saying about it was sort of two things. One, engineering by definition is, or I don't mean literal like dictionary definition, but historically speaking, you tend to see that function as, at least from the HR hiring side of things, as somebody that's like pretty heavy into maybe developing, right, or like code or something like that. And so I do think it risks confusing hiring systems and teams on, does this person need to know how to write code, all this other stuff, right? Like that alone, I think, is a problem. And then it ends up being execution focused. And that's fundamentally like what we're trying to fight against, right? Like for years, we've been sort of told to go do stuff with technology. And to your point, if you get certified as a go-to-market engineer, you understand how to use the tool to do a thing. But it doesn't mean you're necessarily stopping and saying, well, why do we need that tool? And how does it fit into the broader picture of the we're trying to achieve? Sort of going back to what I was saying on the go, if sort of asked differently, if an executive or a board member was asked the question, in charge of building your go-to-market tech stack today? Who's in charge of running that tech stack? It's crickets. Like it was that silence I left for about 3 seconds because it's crickets. Generally speaking, there isn't an answer to that question. The CTO and the CIO do not own the tech stack in that way. They have their own jobs, and they're important jobs. Someone who can translate the art of the possible with technology to the unique language of the business come from this background of marketing operations. And they can enable a business to have success, but they need to do it in a way that says, tell me about what your hypothesis is. How do you think you want to go to market? Let's talk about that, and let's instrument the right capabilities to create an efficient and scalable go-to-market product. A go-to-market engineer isn't a go-to-market architect. Two different things. And I think the thing that we need to keep solving for, and the thing that we've all been trying to solve for a really long time, is the architecture side. And I don't know why that's still being missed. I, for one, am like an advocate for trying to solve for that problem.
Well, I think one of the biggest challenges, for just general perspective here on this, right, wrong, indifferent, it's my perspective, but you've got people who would struggle with clarifying what the difference is between an operator, an engineer, an architect, and the person who provides service on the engine. Like, those are different roles. Now, everybody who does the people who do any one of those roles really, really, really well might have experience working on each part of those things. And then there are some who decide to go really deep in a certain aspect of it. And this is where getting back to traditional definitions of what these terms are and then agreeing to them inside an organization in a collaborative environment can be really powerful. If you want to hang around a bunch of people who are interested in solving this problem and kind of working through it and sharing their experience, practitioners who are doing the work, check out Mopsapalooza. I will be there. I'll include some links in the show notes. Mike, where can people go to find out more about what you're working on? Where do you want to send folks?
Yeah, I would say marketingops.com is probably the easiest resource to find. We'll usually link out to everything. We have annual research that we produce. So if you want to get nerdy and go check out some of those benchmarks and KPIs, we would welcome you to it. Jump into the community if this is a place for you to, go explore and absorb knowledge. But yeah, head over to marketingops.com. Mopsapalooza is all one word, no hyphens, and we'll put it in the show notes, but it also has its own .com now, and I'm really excited about that. Those are the two places that I would say. And if you want to hang out with me, I'm available on LinkedIn. I'm just Mike, as in David Rizzo, Mikedrizzo. That's my handle, so you'll be able to find me.
Perfect. I'll include links in the show notes. Mike, thanks for the awesome conversation. Can't wait to see you in Anaheim in a couple of months. If you know somebody who would enjoy this conversation, please share it with them. Let Mike and I know via LinkedIn that you did the share. The shares help with the show. Sales is a thinking process. Business is a thinking process. Life is a thinking process. How are you thinking different about yours?